The Zenfone 2 was very well received. It had its flaws, yes, but for the price, Asus had put together something very good. Now, a year later, the Zenfone 3 is here, and lots changed. Gone are Intel and the rumored Intel subsidies, meaning the prices have shot up. The build seems refined. We've got Qualcomm Snapdragon underneath the hood. Asus mentions much improved optics, a definite sore spot with the Zenfone 2, and the 5.2 and 5.5 inch variants of the Zenfone 3 are so similar that in fact I've decided to review them in one video, and that is this video. So let's take a closer look at the Zenfone 3, but before we do, if this is your first time here or in case if you're still in shock from the pricing and can't remember, my name's Ash, this is C4E Tech, and you're watching my full review of the Asus Zenfone 3. Let's get started. Let's start with the difference between both variants. The Zenfone 3 ZE520KL is the smaller variant with a 5.2-inch display, a 2600 mAh battery, 3 GB of RAM and 32 GB of onboard storage. The larger variant, the ZE552KL, sports a 5.5-inch display, a 3000 mAh battery, 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of onboard storage. Now, barring that, both phones are exactly alike. So unless I mention a variant particularly, anything I say in this video is applicable for both phones. So let's start with the design. To the front, on top, we have a notification LED, earpiece, sensors, and an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. That's followed by a Super IPS Plus display, and the familiar capacitive keys can be found at the bottom. Sadly, these keys still remain unlit. To the back, we have a 16 megapixel camera, a dual-tone dual LED flash, a laser assist for autofocus, the fingerprint scanner, and Asus branding. The power button and the volume rockers can be found to the right. They have a concentric circle pattern and look splendid. The secondary noise cancelling microphone and 3.5mm headphone jack can be found up top. We've got the primary microphone, USB Type-C port, and the speaker at the bottom. And to the left, there's a tray. You can either use 2 SIM cards or a SIM and a microSD card here with the Zenfone 3. Unlike Zenphones of years past, the glass and metal build used here gives the Zenfone 3 a premium feel. The concentric circles to the back give off a blue hue when struck by light and look great, while the 2.5D Gorilla Glass that curves slightly at the edges to the front and back help a bit with ergonomics. The glass back does cause the Zenfone 3 to definitely feel slippery. While Asus have done a much improved job with the build this time around, some of the old issues still remain. The capacitive keys, for example, remain unlit and the bezels are still quite big. Well, that's not much of an issue with the smaller Zenfone 3, the bigger ZE552KL. With this, the phone feels much wider than other phones with a 5.5-inch display, making it a little uncomfortable to use. Talking about the display, like I mentioned, both phones sport Super IPS Plus displays. The resolution's Full HD, meaning they're quite sharp, the colors are accurate, viewing angles brilliant, and the display is quite bright, so sunlight visibility is not an issue at all. Both displays are covered by Gorilla Glass, so that's there for protection. Underneath the hood, the Zenfone 3 is powered by the Snapdragon 625 chip. That's 8 Cortex A53 cores clocked up to 2 GHz each, coupled with an Adreno 506 GPU. The difference in RAM between both variants doesn't really make a difference. The Zenfone 3 does decently well with benchmarks, and even with real-time usage, the experience was surprisingly good. The phones remain cool even when stressed with intensive gaming, and managed to hold their own even with some of the graphically intensive titles. The reason why the Zenfone 3 stayed cool even when stressed is due to the fact that the Snapdragon 625 chip inside is one of Qualcomm's first chips to be built on the 14nm manufacturing process, the other being the Snapdragon 820. This also theoretically means great power efficiency. Thankfully, that theoretical efficiency translates to practical usage. The Zenfone 3 is very power efficient. In the week and a half that I spent with both these phones, the battery managed to easily last me through a day on a single charge with my regular kind of usage. What's my regular kind of usage, you ask? Well, it involves Wi-Fi and 4G on all day, a lot of social media, push notifications, a little bit of casual gaming, 30 minutes or so, over an hour of calls, another hour of streaming video, and so on. With this kind of usage, Both phones lasted me through a day easily without me having to resort to any of the power saving modes. The larger Zenfone 3, the one with the 5.5-inch display, does perform about 10% better here, but you should have no issues with battery no matter which variant you end up choosing. Audio via the internal speaker and the 3.5mm headphone jack's quite good, and I experienced no issues with cellular reception or call quality on either Zenfone 3. And with that, let's now move on to the camera. Here we have a 16 megapixel camera with a Sony IMX298 sensor and 4-axis optical image stabilization. We've got a 6-element Largan lens with a wide f2.0 aperture and support for laser and face detection autofocus. The images shot with this camera have excellent detail, the colors are accurate, the dynamic range is not the best we've seen, but it still is quite good. Under low light, the noise is kept minimal and the optical image stabilization helps get great shots. The 8 megapixel front camera uses a wide-angle lens and shoots good selfies, gets the job done. The Zenfone 3 has support for 4K video recording and the footage is again excellent. Good detail, decent dynamic range, and thanks to the 4-axis stabilization, it's also very stable. Asus have included a full-fledged manual mode not just for still images but also for video. On the flip side, the camera does not autofocus with the default app while shooting video. This can be rectified with a third-party app, but given that this issue existed for months, I don't see Asus fixing it anytime soon. It's not a deal breaker, but I just thought you guys should know. Talking about software, the Zenfone 3 runs on Android 6 Marshmallow with Asus's Zen UI on top. Not a lot's changed with Zen UI since the last Zenfone. The user interface here looks quite familiar. Sadly, that also means a ton of pre-installed bloat. Asus does let you uninstall or at least disable most of them. Zen UI is quite customizable with support for a lot of themes, and there are even a few other noticeable tweaks here. Some of these I actually got quite used to. Like for example, pressing and holding the recent apps key triggers a screenshot, the double tap to sleep and double tap to wake, double tapping the fingerprint scanner with the phone unlocked launches the camera, and when in the camera app, tapping the fingerprint scanner triggers a shot. Talking about the fingerprint scanner, it is quite fast and accurate. I had no issues with it recognizing my fingerprint most times. Overall, the user experience with the Zenfone 3 was great. Smooth and fluid, the user interface was responsive, apps opened up quick with little to no lag. The memory management was also stellar. My 2 cents. Sometimes I come across a phone that just isn't good and I tell you guys, please don't buy it. This is not one of those times. The Zenfone 3, both the variants, are quite excellent phones. There's a lot to like about them. But that said, I still can't recommend them. Why? The pricing. In India, the smaller ZE520KL is priced at 22,000 rupees and the larger ZE552KL is priced at 28,000 rupees. And at that price, Asus finds these phones competing with the Xiaomi Mi 5 and the OnePlus 3 respectively. As good as the Zenfone 3 is, it's still just a 625 chip underneath, while both the Mi 5 and the OnePlus 3 feature Snapdragon 820s, and even the Lenovo Z2 Plus is available at 20,000 rupees. And if you don't want to go with a Chinese brand, the Galaxy A9 Pro from Samsung is just within reach. Now, had these phones been priced more aggressively, more competitively, like they've been in Taiwan, for example, where they retail for about 16,000 rupees for the smaller variant and 21,000 Indian rupees for the larger variant, had they been priced around that mark here in India, they'd have made sense. But at the current prices, the competition just seems a little too intense for the Zenfone 3 to make a mark. That's just what I feel. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I guess that's it for this review. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, vote it down if you didn't. And for more videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already. So that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. And oh yeah, if you still do want to pick a Zenfone 3 up, I'll leave my affiliate links in the description below. Use them if you do want to help the channel out. And thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, this is Ash here from C4 Retech signing off. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye now.